Most people have heard of Rome. Most people have heard of Greece. Most people have heard of Egypt. Almost nobody has heard of the Sasanian Empire. And that is one of history's greatest oversights. At its height, the Sasanian Empire controlled 11 modern countries. Its capital, Ctesiphon, was arguably the largest city on Earth. Its armies captured a sitting Roman emperor, the only time in Roman history that ever happened. Its engineers built dams and irrigation systems still in use today. Its philosophy, its art, its fire temples, its chess, its music, all of it rippled outward and shaped the medieval world. And then, in the space of just 20 years, it was gone. This is the story of the Sasanian Empire, the forgotten superpower of the ancient world.
To understand why the Sasanians matter, you first have to understand the world they were born into. By the year 200 CE, two empires dominated the known world. In the west, Rome, vast, bureaucratic, militarized, already creaking under the weight of its own size. In the east, the Parthian Empire, the descendants of nomadic steppe warriors who had held Persia and Mesopotamia for almost 5 centuries. The Parthians were powerful, yes, but by the 3rd century they had grown weak. Civil wars fractured their royal house. Nobles accumulated more power than the king. The Silk Road trade that had made them rich was being disrupted. The old Persian identity, the culture of Cyrus and Darius, the Achaemenid legacy, had been slowly buried under Hellenistic Greek influence for 400 years. And in the province of Pars, in the southwest of modern Iran, a man named Ardashir had decided enough was enough.
Ardashir I was the son of a local Persian priest king named Papak, who was himself the custodian of a fire temple in the city of Istak, near the ruins of Persepolis, the old Achaemenid capital that Alexander the Great had burned to the ground 5 centuries earlier. That is not a coincidence. Ardashir grew up in the shadow of Persepolis. He could see what Persia had once been, and he believed deeply, religiously, politically, that it could be again. Starting around 208 CE, Ardashir began systematically conquering neighboring provinces under the guise of serving the Parthian king. He was loyal enough to stay alive and ambitious enough to grow powerful. Within a decade, he controlled all of Pars and was expanding aggressively into neighboring territories. The Parthian king, Artabanus IV, understood what this meant. A subordinate lord was becoming a rival. In 224 CE, he mobilized his forces and marched south to crush Ardashir once and for all.
The Battle of Hormozdgan, 224 CE. The two armies met at a place called Hormozdgan, somewhere on the plains of what is now southwestern Iran. Ancient sources, including the Armenian historian Moses of Koran and later Islamic chroniclers drawing on older Persian records, describe it as a massive, decisive engagement. Artabanus IV commanded the traditional Parthian military system, heavy cataphracts, armored cavalry armed with long lances, and mounted archers, the same combination that had bloodied Roman armies for generations. On paper, it was still one of the most formidable fighting forces in the world. But Ardashir had something else. He had momentum. He had ideology. He was fighting not just as a warlord, but as the restorer of Persian identity, with the full weight of Zoroastrian religious authority behind him. His men believed they were not merely in a battle, they were in a holy war for the soul of Persia. The battle was brutal, and then, in the chaos of the engagement, Artabanus IV was killed. Just like that, in a single afternoon, the Parthian Empire that had ruled for nearly 5 centuries ceased to exist. Ardashir was now the King of Kings, Shahanshah, the founder of the Sasanian dynasty. He named his empire after his legendary ancestor, Sasan, a figure possibly mythological, possibly historical, but deeply symbolic. This was not a new kingdom, this was the resurrection of Persia.
Ardashir moved fast to consolidate his new state. He established Ctesiphon, already a great city on the banks of the Tigris, as his imperial capital. He built a new city adjacent to it called Ardashir, essentially creating a twin city capital complex that would eventually become one of the largest urban centers on Earth. He declared Zoroastrianism the official state religion. The ancient Iranian faith, built around the cosmic struggle between Ahura Mazda, the supreme god of light, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of darkness, became the ideological bedrock of the Sasanian state. Magi, Zoroastrian priests, held enormous political power, functioning almost like a parallel government alongside the military nobility. Ardashir also established a strict four-tier social hierarchy: the priests at the top, then warriors, then scribes and administrators, then farmers and artisans. This wasn't just social structure, it was considered the divine order of the universe. Every person had a station, every station had a cosmic purpose. It was rigid, it was hierarchical, and it was extraordinarily effective at mobilizing a large, diverse empire under a single ideological framework.
Ardashir died around 242 CE, leaving his empire to his son Shapur I. And if Ardashir was the founder, Shapur was the architect. Shapur I reigned for roughly 30 years, and in that time he did something no enemy of Rome had ever done before and no enemy would ever do again. He captured a Roman emperor alive. The emperor was Valerian. The year was 260 CE, the place was Edessa in modern southeastern Turkey. Rome and Persia had been at war off and on since Ardashir's time. The borderlands of Mesopotamia and Syria were a permanent grinding zone between the two superpowers. Roman emperors regularly launched grand campaigns eastward with dreams of glory. Most accomplished little. Some were killed. The border shuffled back and forth. In 260 CE, Valerian led a massive Roman army. Ancient sources suggest perhaps 60 to 70,000 men to relieve the besieged city of Edessa. His army was already weakened, possibly by plague, certainly by supply problems, and Shapur I was waiting for him. What happened next is still debated by historians. The Roman sources suggest negotiation gone wrong. Valerian walked into talks and was seized. Persian sources, most famously Shapur's own monumental inscription at Nakhshe-Rostam, describe a proper military defeat first, Roman forces broken in the field, followed by the capture of the emperor himself. Whatever the exact sequence, the outcome was undeniable. Valerian was taken prisoner. He was paraded through Persian cities as a living trophy of the Persian king's dominion. He never returned to Rome. He died in Persian captivity, the only Roman emperor in history to end his life as a prisoner of a foreign power. Shapur commemorated this moment obsessively. Enormous rock reliefs, some still visible today in the mountains of Fars province, show the Persian king mounted on horseback with Valerian kneeling before him and the previous emperor Philip the Arab standing submissively beside him. Rome's humiliation carved into the living rock of Persia forever.
The centuries between Shapur I and the later Sasanian period saw the empire cycle through strength and weakness, brilliant kings and weak ones, devastating Roman invasions and Persian counterstrikes, internal rebellions and religious persecutions. The Sasanians fought Rome, then Byzantium, to a rough and bloody stalemate for generation after generation. But then came Khosrow I, known as Anushirvan, the immortal soul, and the empire reached what many historians consider its absolute apex. Khosrow I reigned from 531 to 579 CE, nearly 50 years, and the list of what he accomplished in that time is almost implausibly long. He reformed the tax system, moving from a harvest-based model, which encouraged landowners to underreport yields, to a fixed land assessment. Revenue became predictable, the state became solvent. He reorganized the military, creating a professional middle-class cavalry, the Dekhans, landowners who supplied and maintained themselves as soldiers in exchange for hereditary land grants. This gave the empire a reliable, highly motivated fighting force without the constant expense of mercenaries. He founded new cities, he built hospitals, he established what some scholars describe as an early system of public welfare, with state granaries to prevent famine. And perhaps most remarkably, he invited the world's knowledge to Persia. When the Byzantine Emperor Justinian closed the Platonic Academy in Athens in 529 CE, expelling its pagan philosophers, Khosrow I welcomed them to Ctesiphon. Greek philosophy, Indian mathematics, astronomical texts from across the known world were translated into Pahlavi, the Persian script of the Sasanians, and compiled in the great library of the imperial court. The game of chess arrived from India during his reign. Persian scholars adapted it, renamed the pieces, wrote the earliest surviving texts on chess strategy, and then exported the game westward to the Arab world, and from there to medieval Europe. Every chess player alive today is in some sense playing a Sasanian game.
Khosrow II, Khosrow Parviz, surnamed the Victorious, would push the empire beyond anything it had ever achieved, and beyond anything it could sustain. Khosrow II came to power in 591 CE after a period of civil war, and he ruled until 628 CE. The early decades of his reign were marked by wealth, cultural splendor, and military expansion on a scale that seemed to echo the old Achaemenid Empire of Darius and Xerxes. In 602 CE, the Byzantine Emperor Maurice, who had been Khosrow's personal patron and had helped him regain his throne years earlier, was overthrown and murdered by a general named Phocas. Khosrow declared war on Byzantine in revenge, or at least used revenge as the justification for what was really an enormous territorial gamble. The early campaign was extraordinary. Persian armies swept westward with a momentum unseen since Alexander. Syria fell, Palestine fell. In 614 CE, Jerusalem was captured, and the true cross, the most sacred relic in Christendom, was carried back to Ctesiphon as a trophy. By 619 CE, Egypt, the breadbasket of the Byzantine world, was in Persian hands. At that moment, the Sasanian Empire controlled more territory than at any point in its history. The Persian king corresponded with the Byzantine emperor as if he were a subordinate. Khosrow II's letters to Emperor Heraclius were, by contemporary accounts, the letters of a man who believed he had already won. He had not won. He had overextended.
Heraclius, one of the most remarkable military commanders of the ancient world, spent the next decade in what can only be described as a desperate, brilliant comeback. He reorganized the Byzantine army. He melted down church silver to fund the campaign. He launched a series of daring, deep strikes directly into the Persian heartland, bypassing the obvious front lines, disrupting Sasanian supply networks, striking at places the Persians never expected to defend. By 627 CE, Heraclius had won a decisive victory at the Battle of Nineveh and was within striking distance of Ctesiphon itself. The Sasanian state cracked. Khosrow II had ruled as an absolute monarch for 30 years. He had made enemies of almost every noble house in Persia. Now, with the Byzantine army at the gates, his own generals and nobles turned on him. In early 628 CE, Khosrow II was overthrown by his own son, Kavad II, and executed. Reportedly stabbed repeatedly in his treasury room over several days, his body left unburied, a deliberate final humiliation. In the next 4 years, the Sasanian throne changed hands 12 times. Civil war, assassination, plague, famine. The empire that had fought Rome to a standstill for 400 years was consuming itself.
And into this vacuum, this shattered, exhausted, plague-ridden empire, came something that nobody in Ctesiphon had anticipated. From the Arabian Peninsula, a new force had emerged. Unified under the banner of Islam in just a single generation, the Arab armies under the Rashidun Caliphate moved north with a speed and ferocity that stunned everyone who encountered them. The Byzantines had already lost the Levant. Egypt would follow, and now the Arabs turned east, toward Persia. The Sasanian commander at the time was a general named Rustam Farrokhzad, one of the last great military minds of the empire. He commanded a Sasanian army that, even in its weakened state, outnumbered the Arab forces significantly. The two armies met at a place on the Euphrates called Al-Qadisiyyah in the autumn of 636 CE. The battle lasted 4 days, one of the longest pitched engagements in the ancient record. Day 1. The Sasanians advanced with their signature weapon, war elephants, massive creatures armored with iron plates, carrying howdahs of archers and lancers on their backs. The Arab cavalry horses had never seen elephants before. They broke and fled at the sight and smell of them. The Arab commander, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, had anticipated this. He ordered his archers to target the mahouts, the elephant riders, and to slash at the animals' legs and trunks with long knives. The Sasanian right wing pushed hard, but the Arab infantry held. The first day ended with no decisive result. Day 2, reinforcements arrived for the Arabs, a contingent from Syria. Morale lifted. More importantly, the Arabs had now studied how the elephants moved, how they were guided, what made them panic. Disguised lancers began targeting the elephants' eyes and legs with coordinated attacks. Several of the great animals wheeled in pain and charged back through their own lines, trampling Sasanian soldiers. Day 3, brutal attrition. Both sides were exhausted. The Arabs had an unexpected advantage in this kind of grinding close combat. Fighting in loose, flexible formations, they could adapt quickly to tactical shifts that the more rigid, heavily armored Sasanian formations could not. The Persian heavy cavalry, the Savaran, was devastating in open field charges, but less effective in the press of sustained infantry combat. Day 4, Rostam Farrokhzad, the Sasanian general, was commanding from behind the main line, the traditional position for a commander of his rank. A sandstorm arose, blowing directly into the Persian faces. Visibility dropped to near zero. In the chaos, an Arab soldier named Hilal ibn Ulafa, or in some accounts Washi, reached Rostam's position. The general was killed. Word spread through the Sasanian line instantly. The command structure dissolved. The retreat became a rout. Thousands of Sasanian soldiers drowned attempting to cross the Euphrates. The Arab army pursued. Al-Qadisiyyah was over. 6 years later, at the Battle of Nahavandon in 642 CE, called by Arab chroniclers the Conquest of Conquests, the last major Sasanian military force was broken in the mountains of western Iran.
The last Sasanian king was Yazdegerd III. He had come to the throne as a teenager in 632 CE, just as the Arab invasion began. He spent the rest of his life running. First from Ctesiphon, which fell to the Arabs in 637 CE. The great palace, the Khosrow, that impossible arch still standing today, was sacked and stripped of its legendary jeweled carpet, the carpet of spring, a vast rug depicting the Persian royal gardens in gold thread and gemstones, so large it reportedly covered the entire audience hall of the palace. The Arabs cut it into pieces and divided the fragments as war spoils. Yazdegerd fled east, into Khorasan, into Central Asia. For nearly 15 years he wandered the outer provinces of what had been his empire, writing letters to kings and nobles who no longer came to his aid, appealing to the Tang Emperor of China for military support that never arrived. In 651 CE, near the city of Merv, in modern Turkmenistan, Yazdegerd III was killed. Not in battle, not by an Arab sword. He was murdered by a miller. A local man who found the exhausted fugitive king sheltering in his mill, killed him for the few valuables he still carried, and threw his body in a river. The last king of kings of the Sasanian Empire, heir to Ardashir, Shapur, Khosrow, was found floating face down in an irrigation ditch. A Christian bishop nearby arranged for his burial. The man who had ruled the most powerful empire in the Eastern world was interred quietly, without ceremony, in a foreign land. The Sasanian Empire was over.
But here is the thing about empires. They do not simply vanish. The Sasanian Empire collapsed politically in a generation, but what it had built, what it had thought, created, invented, transmitted, none of that died. The Arab conquerors absorbed Sasanian administrative structures wholesale. Persian bureaucrats, Persian scribes, Persian governors continued running the machinery of government under new management. The Abbasid Caliphate, which replaced the Rashidun and Umayyad Caliphates in 750 CE, was explicitly modeled on Sasanian court culture, the ceremonies, the hierarchies, the architecture, the cuisine. Persian language and culture did not disappear under Islamic rule. It transformed and then re-emerged, and by the 9th and 10th centuries, a renaissance of Persian literature, Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, written around 1000 CE, was explicitly a project of remembering the Sasanian world. Ferdowsi drew on older Persian chronicles to reconstruct the history and mythology of the empire that had been lost. The Shahnameh is, among other things, one of the longest poems in human history, and it is fundamentally a meditation on grief for the Sasanians. Chess spread westward from Sasanian Persia through the Arab world and into medieval Europe, where it became the game of kings, the metaphor for war and strategy, the board game that has endured for 15 centuries. Zoroastrianism survived. Today, roughly 100,000 to 200,000 Zoroastrians, the descendants of those who refused conversion, still practice the faith of Ahura Mazda, in Iran, where they are called Zoroastrians, and in India, where they are called Parsis, the word literally meaning Persians. The architecture of the Sasanians became a template. The Iwan, the great vaulted hall open on one side, exemplified by the Khosrow, became one of the defining forms of Islamic architecture. Walk through any great mosque in Iran, Iraq, or Central Asia, and you are in part walking through a space shaped by Sasanian builders. And that arch, that impossible arch outside Baghdad, the Khosrow, still stands. War has passed around it, floods have threatened it, neglect has eroded it, and it stands. The Sasanian Empire was not a footnote. It was not a side story. It was one of the central dramas of the ancient world, and the world we live in today. Its architecture, its games, its religions, its administrative traditions, bears the fingerprints of a civilization that most people cannot even name. Remember the name now. The Sasanian Empire, the forgotten superpower. And it was anything but forgotten. This is the end of the story of the Sasanian Empire. What do you think went wrong? Tell us in the comments section. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more of it, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Till we meet again.